Hello and welcome to the Best Today podcast. I am your host, Shantae Grant, and today I am here to give you some of my reflections. This is the first episode in the month of August 2024, and for those of you who follow along with Best Today, you may know that every July, for the past 3 years, we log off of social media for what we call our social media reset. That's a time when we just, like I said, log off. And I always like to come back with reflections. Right after that is right after the reset is done, but also time after that to even talk more about, what life looks like well into it. Because every single year I'm like, this is just the best thing. This is such the best idea. And it always feels like the best month, the month of July. So I want to get into that. This will be brief today, but share my reflections now that I've done this 3 times in a row, 3 years in a row, 3 Julys, what's that, 24, 23, and 2022. So the third year, I will say, felt very different, noticeably different, in that I did not ever reach for my phone to look for Instagram, right? I knew it was gone, and that was that. Very different from year one, where you go to reach for your phone and scroll, and the app is gone, because we literally delete it from our phone. And I thought that was really great, because that lets me know that over the last 2 years, I really have, and again, from the beginning, I've had what I believe to be pretty great boundaries on social media. They have become tightened because it's become less and less of my work. And really, I guess I should say, for me, social media is primarily used for work versus personal. I don't keep up with things on Facebook. I use Facebook strictly for my HOA to be able to talk to, like, if I have a question, or for Facebook Marketplace if I'm buying something or selling something. I don't use Facebook for social things in that respect. I try to stick to social things like we did before the internet, calling, visiting, being in front of. So I don't use Facebook for that. And Instagram, again, is primarily 98%. I use it for work, and I have I would say about 2% personal. So, but from the start, it felt different because I never had that moment of reaching for it and it was gone. I had the understanding we're not doing it, deleted it, and it was just like removing something that you never needed before, and being completely okay with it. I will say what I did notice, I would say maybe the first 2 weeks at different times are places in my life where I would have reached for it, right? So where I would have taken a picture to share something, or look to see if there were any updates for some of the people I enjoy following. But that would always happen at times, like, okay, here's an example. I was standing at a very long line at TJ Maxx. And I was like, I'm gonna be in this line for about 3 minutes. I didn't reach for my phone, but I said to myself, this is a time where I would reach for my phone. And while I'm just standing here, I might scroll on Instagram and see what someone was doing. Like, or I just kind of flush through my stories on my personal Instagram. But that didn't happen. I just recognized the fact that this is a place where I would have done that, and I didn't actually reach for it. And I really, really love that. And that's why I encourage you, do this with us every year, or different months for you. If there's a better month of the year for you, you're able to see differences in yourself, which show you how you've been able to really transform your relationship or your use of the whatever platforms they are for you, right? But again, moments like standing in line in TJ Maxx, that would be a time where I would just get on and look at stories. But really, because this July in particular, and usually all Julys for me, there's just so much life to live in July. There's so many things going on. It just moves so quickly. And I think about this starting July 1st, literally, I believe that was a Monday. It was the first day of the first week of summer break where my children were out for camp for the week. So we were going to be spending a lot of time together. We had a painting project that we're going to work on, and we finished, and it's beautiful. More of that on my Substack for those on the journey. So make sure you're subscribed to that. It's linked here in the show notes. So you can see pictures and all the things. We had play dates with friends. Really avoiding the sun as much as possible because it was so hot. It was just a month that was so full. I traveled. I can't even count the number of times we traveled in July, planned unplanned travel up and down the road as a family, by myself. And so July has so many moving parts, and really not that it's moving part. It just has things in it that it feels great to have removed one thing, even if it feels like something small, because Instagram isn't a huge part of my life. And when I'm talking about social media, for me, I'm mostly referencing social media, Instagram. But just removing that one tiny thing. One thing I just also noticed is I didn't carry my work phone. I hardly ever carried my work phone with me. The reason I usually am, if you see me, I usually have two phones, right? I have my life phone and my work phone, but not having Instagram, because might want to get an idea, want to share something on Instagram, or take a picture or something I might want to share later on Instagram. And with that not being a thing this month, my phone died because I just let it sit in in our study. I didn't need it. And it was really great because when I work, I'm at a computer. I work on a computer. I don't take my work on a phone. I use my phone for work to capture content, things I want to share, and then really, again, to check in on the community. But a lot of those things I can do on the computer. So it was just really nice to also carry a purse and it just has one phone, or carry something. I'm like, oh, this is so much lighter because I only have one phone, because these Apple phones are heavy. So that was another cool thing that I noticed and I liked. And so I want to be more mindful even of, whenever I do allow myself back onto social media, how do I create those divides again? Because I really did love just having one phone. And that was the intent of getting separate phones anyway. So it's just been so nice to be out. And there were a few times where I was out and someone asked a question and I was like, oh, I would have the answer, but that's on my work phone. There are a few times where it was convenient to have it to reach for something else, but totally worth the trade-off. And so one of the thoughts I had when I was thinking about social media based off of the month of July is I felt like social media is kind of like an extra button on the coat of life. You know how you'll buy a coat and it'll have that extra button that's in there, that's tucked in case you lose one of your buttons. And really, this is giving it even more than it is. So just take the analogy for what it is. But it's like that button is not necessary. It's not vital. It's not missed if it's lost or goes away. It's nice to have, so that if you happen to have a need for it, it's there. But it's nice to have when I want it, or mindful of but I'm more mindful that there are things that are far more substantive that I can always opt in for instead. Social media is there, but there's such limited time in our lives and in our days that the best use of my time? That's a question I ask myself many times throughout the day. Is this the best use of my time? Because if I do have 15 minutes, would reading a piece of a book that I've been trying to get into, or saying I don't have time to reading a new book. And speaking of that, that's another thing I did this month. I started my first fiction book in decades. When I tell you I haven't read a fiction book that wasn't attached to a class or a grade, it's been decades. But a friend of mine started a BookTube channel, and I started watching it, and I was just gross. One, I just started watching because I love her and I'm fascinated with the things she's going to share, and I would just watch them to support her. But I am loving them, and I'm discovering these new books that she talks about, and most of what she reads might be outside of what I enjoy. I think what I would enjoy in nonfiction, but there was one book she talked about that I felt sold. She said it was light and easy, an easy read, and I was like, I'm gonna use this as my introduction to see if I want to dabble in fiction. I am still going to probably be 99% nonfiction, but I don't know. You never know. I also discovered there's just so many genres of nonfiction. And for me, so maybe I'll share this because some of y'all might have some book recommendations. If I'm going to read a nonfiction book, I don't need a lot of mystery. I don't need a lot of moving parts. I'm not a sci-fi person. I don't want complicated. Because for me, this is an opportunity for something that's right? Airy and fun and maybe funny. Life, if it has a deeper meaning, also great. But yeah, not too many moving parts. I'm not interested in any of that. For me, life has enough of that. I don't want to invite it in my fiction reading. Oh, the whole point of fiction is it's not life, right? So those are the kind of things I think I might be interested in. And so I'm also thinking about picking up some books that I remember loving as a student, from my literature classes, from English classes, from as long back as high school. I remember really enjoying Wuthering Heights. And I'm like, man, what would I think about it now some 30 years later, well, not 30 years later, I don't know how old, however many years ago when I was like 16 years old. It was not recent. How, oh, hold on. Almost 30 years later. Very close. Okay. Here, like literally I'm over here, like making sure my math is mathing, but so something like that. I might, Jane Eyre. Am I thinking about Jane Eyre? Okay. This is where she goes off and she's like thinking about, maybe it's Jane Eyre that I'm thinking about, not Wuthering Heights. I think that is correct. Jane Eyre. But anywho, all that to say, I got into fiction and that was just, again, there's space and time and like, oh, I think I'm going to do that. So, but the whole point was limited amount of time that we have in this life. Is this the best use of my time? Perhaps 15 minutes is better spent starting a new book, getting into something that's interesting, versus seeing what the person you don't know had for lunch, And I say that knowing that I am one of those people. I share parts of my life on the internet or on, social media. And so I'm not, one, bashing the people who are doing that, and two, you for being interested in those people, right? But what I'm saying is, do you need to know what 45 different people who you don't know are wearing, buying, traveling, can you streamline? And that might mean I get cut out from the number, and I am okay with that. In fact, I support you and I celebrate you for making the choice, because I know that there are going to be those where I am in their top 1 to 2. And those are the people whose attention I have been entrusted with, right? But I want you to just think about that. Like, is this the best use of my time? This is just this extra button that if I lose it, don't need it. I'm okay. And if I have it, okay, it's there. Anywho, that's the thought that I had.
At Best Today, we exist to help women just like you be your best one today at a time. So each week on the podcast, we are going to highlight your stories and your voices. So let's see what's in the inbox today.
Today, we have a 5-star review of the weekly preview planning pad, the Clear Your Mind version specifically, from Sonia Airline, who writes, "Weekly game changer. I've been using the weekly planning pads for a little more than 2 months and they are amazing. As a teacher, I love using these pads as I prepare for the week on Sunday night. They also provide me with the needed flexibility to add events and tasks that pop up after I've previewed my week. And the Clear My Mind section has eliminated all the random post-it notes that accumulate across my desk. That section has helped organize my random thoughts, brainstorms, reflections, and ideas that need to be processed later." And that's exactly why we created the Clear Your Mind format. So there are 2 formats to our weekly preview planning pads. You can get the full weekly, which mirrors the Best Today guide, or what Sonia's referencing, that is the Clear Your Mind, which gives you space as you preview your week and live throughout your week to actually have a place to clear your mind and avoid all of the sticky notes everywhere. And you're like, where's that sticky note? I put it somewhere. I can't find it. Problem solved. Everything you need in one place. And the best part is the pad covers you for an entire year with 50 sheets. So you can order yours right now by going to besttoday.co. You can look under the weekly planning section, the shop all. You'll find it. It's right there. So please go right now to besttoday.co and order your weekly preview planning pad. Say that 3 times fast. And thank you so much, Sonia. And thank you as a teacher. We love our teachers. So anything I can do to help make our teachers' lives more smooth, I am so grateful for it. So thank you for all that you do as a teacher, and thank you for this 5-star review. Another major thought from this social media reset that I really have thought about, and I actually was just kind of articulating a little bit, but I want fewer voices in my head. And here's what I mean by that. I want to lessen the number of people who I do not know in real life who I know things about, right? In the social media context, right? I don't want to know what so many people, like who had a baby, who had this heartbreak, who had this tragedy happen to them, who had this great thing happen, and I don't even know you, right? I have so many important people who I know in real life, and I'm going to tell you, pouring into them and being supported by them and being in life and being in loving relationship and friendship with those people, that's a lot. And the people who I have virtually, like in my community, like we don't have an abundance of ability to just know about all the people, right? And I get it. People are interesting, right? But I just thought about this. I was like, I want fewer voices in my head. And it's not that their voices are in my head and that I'm hearing voices. It's just that whether you know it or not, when you start consuming what other people are sharing, they start planting seeds in your life, in your head, in your thoughts. And sometimes, and a lot of times actually, because I see it happen with so many people, they start to drown out your voice. And what you now mistake the voice of others to be yours and to echoing your values, and they're not. Now, I believe that I have such a clarity in who I am and what I value that I don't get to that place. I know it happens to a lot of people. But even so, I don't want that. And so, although I already have a very intentionally curated following list, I want to go back and make it less. And I'm going to tell you how many in a minute, and you're probably going to be like, what? But I don't want more voices. I don't need more voices, and most certainly none that are not a reflection of what I value. And so I'm sharing that for you as well. And I just really, if I'm going to watch other people or read or listen to the things they have to say, they need to not only be a reflection of what I value, but they have to be a reflection of like what's narrowly important to me right now. Because there could be someone talking about something that I care deeply about, like life as a newborn parent, but that's not narrowly important to me today. I am not now the parent of a newborn. That phase of my life is over. So also like what actually really matters right now. So that was a really big thought I had because I have a time now where there's no other voices. There are no other thoughts. I'm not, from a social media standpoint, right? I still have people who I enjoy reading their newsletters, who I enjoy reading their blog posts, their writing. But from a social media standpoint, those snippets, and I believe when you're reading someone's like writing, like whether it's in their newsletter or on their blogs or Substacks, for me, there's more intention in those. There's more substance there than a 30 to 90 second reel or a 60-second Insta story or a post and a caption. And really, let's be real, when I'm on Instagram, I'm only watching stories. I don't know the last time I've actually gone to someone's feed and like looked at what they said, and no, right? So for me, I was just like, if that's the case, if I'm just getting these snippets, which is never the full picture, and I feel like you get more full pictureness from things like other people's podcasts, blogs, Substacks, email list, then this was a sign for me that it was time to narrow that down. Okay, so whether or not you decide to do a reset, I hope that my main intention in just sharing this with you is always that you will be more mindful of the value there is in life outside of looking at people, places, and things on screens, right? There is a life that is not promised to you tomorrow is waiting for you today. And having your eyes and mind glued to social media ad nauseum feels very, very wasteful. So think about it, like with the little whole, like, is social media that extra button that if you lose it, it's fine? Or is it like the entire sleeve that like makes the coat? Or is it the full coat of your life? You have to have it. It's the all in all. I really want you to think about that for you and your life. And for me, as I think about my intention going forward, I want to continue to use it to provide information that moves people really away from social media. My social media is to send you to places that are not, right? So I'm always talking about my podcast, my writing, which are on my Substacks, an event that I'm doing, point you to resources that I have at besttoday.co or the community. I'm using that as a place to say, hey, there's a better place. Go there, right? I am there to engage and encourage. But I do also, like I said, use it in times like when I have time to pass, standing in line. And I will say, things like the standing in line is different than like waiting in the doctor's office. I intentionally always have a book with me. So I'm going to be reading a book when I'm like there because I have my things like with me. And I'm not like standing in line with products in my hands or a shopping cart. But I think I might want to try to start choosing something else, perhaps just being and standing in the line, observing the people, taking in life as it's unfolding around me. Every second doesn't need to be filled with something from a screen, especially on platforms that exist to distract me and keep me on their platform past the point of healthy intake or necessary intake, meaning like if it's for work, you're on for the work you have to do and you get out. And then I'm going to narrow down to 1 to 2 people to follow who I don't know in real life, right? Whose voices are relevant to me and narrowly focused on something that's narrow in my narrow focus right now. And maybe that might be go down to 0. I see myself varying somewhere between 0 to 2. And like I said, the number, y'all gonna be like, what? But yeah, I think that is one of the things I have thought about. And I was like, okay, who would that be? There's one person whose content I've been thinking about, but she started her own website. And I was like, finally, but it doesn't look like it's kind of have a lot right now. But I really have been thinking like, who will my 1 to 2 people be? And that might vary and shift. But that's what I'm thinking going forward. And of course, I'll come back and share and report back. I'll probably write about it over on my Substack. So if it doesn't make it here to the podcast, it will be over at For Those on the Journey. So make sure you're subscribed. It is linked right here in the show notes. I'm also going to link to previous episodes where I've shared my post-social media reset reflections. It's really interesting to note the commonalities and also the different perspectives from year to year. So those are also linked in the show notes. Episode 82, episode 74, and episode 128. So go and listen to those as well, particularly if you're thinking about a reset, if you're in the middle of a reset, or if you're just thinking about your use of social media. Those will be really great episodes for you to go back and listen to. And that's what I have for you today, sharing some of my reflections. Thank you for being present with me for this week's episode of the Best Today podcast. The best way to support this podcast is by leaving a review, sharing with a friend, and letting me know your favorite parts and what questions you have. You can always email us at hello@besttoday.co. We do want to hear from you. And if you'd like to hear more from me, I invite you to read and subscribe to my online publication. It's on Substack For Those on the Journey, which is literally at forthoseonthejourney.com. And it's also linked below wherever you're listening right now. So thank you again for listening to today's episode. If you were on the social media reset, I'd love to hear your reflections. Join us over in the community, or again, you can email us or leave us a voice message at besttoday.co/voice. I'll talk to you on the next episode. Bye for now. This podcast is provided for you every week by Best Today, where we are on a mission to help you to live and work well. We do this by creating resources that bring intention to how you plan, schedule, work, and live. You can get started in one of 3 easy ways. First, by taking our product quiz at besttoday.co/quiz. 2, joining us in our online community, the Best Today community, at besttoday.co/community. Or 3, connect with us through email at besttoday.co/email, all of which are linked below in the show notes. To learn more about our company and what we do, visit besttoday.co and join thousands of customers around the world pursuing a life of intention, one today at a time.